There are 2 rangers in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. And which would you like to jump into first, James?
Well, the D&D books always go alphabetically, so that is what we shall do first. Let's get into some chaotic Fey magic with the Fey Wanderer Ranger.
Yeah, we see a lot of this in Tasha's actually. So the Fey Wanderer is a Fey of a certain Fey mystique surrounds you. Thanks to a boon from an archfey, the shining fruit you ate from a talking tree. I love these. I love these examples. The magic spring that you swam in, or some auspicious event. However you did it, you acquired Fey magic, and you're now a Fey Wanderer, a ranger who represents both mortal and the Fey realms. As you wander the multiverse, your joyful laughter and your brightness heartens the most downtrodden, and your martial prowess strikes terror in your foes. For great is the mirth of the Fey, and dreadful is your fury. This is kind of a good example of what the Fey kind of are, I think. I think far too often when people think of the Feywild, they think everything's going to be hunky-dory and full of joy and Christmas lights and stuff like that, when in fact it's a little bit of that, and it's a little bit of like Annihilation, if you've seen that film.
Very good movie.
Yes, very good movie. Very good example of the Feywild. So
yeah, I always think of Annihilation as a very sort of far realm thing, but the far realm and Feywild truly can be 2 sides of the same coin if you really get into the creep factor of it.
Also with the Shadowfell, honestly, when you look at things like Pan's Labyrinth,
2 sides of the same coin.
Yeah, exactly.
The Fey have never been my particularly favorite sort of D&D plot hook or plot element, but there's enough Fey in this book that I think anyone who loves the Fey, and there are many people like that out there, will kind of finally be getting the dose of Fey content that they want. We've seen people clamoring for more Fey stuff beyond the simple Archfey Warlock and Oath of the Ancients Paladin from the Player's Handbook. And it's been a slow drip until now, but there's been almost a bursting of the floodgates. Let's get into it, because
let's go. Let's start with the 3rd level, right?
Because interestingly enough, we start with a Shadowfell ability right off the bat with the Dreadful Strikes ability, one of the several 3rd level features that the Fey Wanderer gets. You can augment your weapon strikes with mind scarring magic drawn from the gloomy hollows of the Feywild. When you hit a creature with a weapon, you can deal an extra 1d4 psychic damage to the target, which can take this extra damage only once per turn. The extra damage bumps up to 1d6 at 11th level. This is an interesting ability because it's not just your weapons deal an extra d4 of psychic damage. It actively encourages you to strike many different creatures in the same round to keep getting an extra d4 against a new target in each turn. And just like a rogue sneak attack, the wording is such that if you make an opportunity attack, it's a different turn, you deal that damage again.
That's a very good point, actually. Yeah, that's something I think that can quite be lost, because there are several rangers that can add a little bit of extra damage once per turn, using a bonus action or something like that. But for this Dreadful Strikes, this is encouraging you to target multiple targets. 1d4 psychic damage, fairly hard to resist. Not impossible, not quite what force damage is. And originally in UA, it was a bit higher than this, 1d4, certainly. And I believe there was an effect that was related to charm or fear that was associated with it on top of that.
Right.
Yeah, so at 3rd level, still, I'll take extra damage any day as a ranger. So I'm not gonna say no. The Fey Wanderer magic at 3rd level, you have some additional spells that you get as this ranger. These very much make sense for this type of ranger. You get Charm Person, of course. Misty Step, naturally you want to have Misty Step. Dispel Magic. I think this makes a lot of sense for that ranger who has traversed the Feywild and knows that often they're going to run into other mortals who have perhaps succumbed to magic of the Feywild, and this ranger can dispel that. Dimension Door makes a lot of sense also as well. And then Mislead, which is probably one of my favorite D&D spells of all time. very much makes sense for the Ranger. 17th level, this is kind of a deal. This can be a game changer if used in the right situation by a very clever Ranger. And it's great that they see this.
I'm quite fond of Mislead as well. It's a very cool spell.
Yeah, and when you pull it off, you feel pretty awesome. Speaking of the Avengers, you feel like Loki.
Yeah. So these new Ranger spells are something that were introduced to the Ranger class in Xanathar's Guide to Everything. So you'll see that the Ranger subclasses in the Player's Handbook don't have these subclass spells, but every Ranger subclass from Xanathar's forward does have them. And they really do deserve it. The Ranger deserves these extra spells, I feel. After all, Paladins get them, and they're very much in the same league of half-caster. So these are things that you're really happy to have, and they really help reinforce the theme of your character quite well. This feature also says you possess a preternatural blessing from a Fey ally or a place of Fey power. Choose your blessing from the Feywild Gifts table or roll to determine it randomly. This is purely a flavor addition what the D&D design team would call a ribbon ability, but it does things like illusory butterflies fluttering around when you take a short or a long rest, fresh seasonal flowers sprouting from your hair each dawn. This is the sort of thing that I really love to see in subclasses because it reinforces the story of what you're doing in a particularly vivid way, in more than just mechanical terms. So very fun, this.
It's also like a really great reminder of like, okay, this is how far you can take flavoring things. Like when we look at the art, actually, for this Ranger, you have a human. It says it's a human, but its skin is green and has horns like a ram. So if you want to, basically play a tiefling, but not be a tiefling, your exposure to the Feywild can make you something very much other. Even though you are technically a human, you can think really outside of the box with this type of character. I would have almost liked stuff like this for the Horizon Walker as well, because you've been exposed to the radiation of all these different planes. Maybe things have started to grow on you. Much like the Fathomless, Warlock as well. Maybe barnacles have started to grow in weird places. I love this flavor stuff, and it does remind old players and new players that you can really change it up. And who doesn't want to smell like cinnamon all the time?
Yeah, I did have a tiefling in one of my earlier 5e campaigns who did have the scent of cinnamon about her at all times.
Yeah, it's a fun little affectation, and and I can see that as being like a major plot point for that story, right? Like some constable, like the room smells of cinnamon. Now, of course, being Tasha's Cauldron of everything, we're not done with third level yet.
Nope.
We like to front load our Rangers a little bit. Otherworldly glamour. Your Fey qualities give you a supernatural charm. As a result, and this is nice, this is something I love, whenever you make a charisma check, you gain a bonus equal to your wisdom modifier +1 minimum. I can't say it. Okay. In addition, you gain proficiency in one of the following skills of your choice: deception, performance, or persuasion. This makes a ton of sense. Again, surprisingly, I would kind of like this for the Horizon Walker, because if you're talking to lots of people from lots of places, but this makes a lot of sense. You've got that kind of ethereal nature to you now. You're far more persuasive, and you don't have to lean into your charisma as much to make this Ranger make sense.
It feels, stories about the Fae are always about duplicity and trickery and confidence games. And for someone to have a Fae theme, but to be focused around a different ability score than charisma, you do want something to kind of hack that social prowess into your skill set. When you think about Rangers, the archetype is really Strider from Lord of the Rings.
Right.
But Strider is not Aragorn, right? Aragorn's very charismatic. He's a king. But Strider is rough and tumble, and he rebukes requests for second breakfast. He's not a charismatic guy. And so anything you can do to give you that bit of charm is a welcome addition for this Fey Ranger.
And it's a bit of temptation in some way to maybe bump up your charisma more than you normally would.
Yeah.
Because then you're seeing like this kind of this bigger benefit, and you could come out of this with a very different Ranger that maybe isn't 100% focused on combat, even though it's a combat subclass.
Mm-hmm.
But so at 7th level, we get Beguiling Twist. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yes, Beguiling Twist. The magic of the Feywild guards your mind. You have advantage on saving throws against being charmed or frightened. And in addition, whenever you or a creature you can see within 120 feet of you succeeds on a saving throw against being charmed or frightened, you can use your reaction to force a different creature that you can see within the same range to make a wisdom saving throw against your spell save DC. And on a failure, the target is charmed or frightened by you, your choice, for 1 minute, able to repeat the save at the end of each of their turns, and the effect on itself on a success. This is so cool. Not only do you get a boost to being affected by these mind-altering effects, but you can turn the tables on them and twist that magic right back at the caster or their allies.
It is interesting in the fact that, originally, given that, when I look back at the original UA, you had this kind of effect built in where you did force I believe either being charmed or being frightened saving throw every time you hit someone using the dreadful strikes. So then this, would originally like triggered off of that. This is encouraging you, though, now that that's kind of removed, to maybe use those charm spells, to use fear, to use these other spells that at your disposal possibly, and make sure they succeed, right? Like, like if I didn't charm that person, I charm somebody else. So it does encourage you to probably use charm person quite a bit, even though you better be down to scrap if you do, because that's how charm person works. They get quite angry at you for doing so.
You're so right. When I saw this ability, I initially read it totally incorrectly as whenever you or an ally succeeds on a saving throw, but that's not it at all. If you whiff one of your charm spells against just someone, you can redirect it as well. That is quite powerful.
Yeah, that's almost, I mean, we're not getting into full auto success territory, but I mean, it's
a nice second chance.
It's a nice second chance with any charm. Now, I don't know how, I think charm person really is the only thing they have in there that is considered to be a charm or frightening spell. I don't think rangers have really a fear, do they?
That's a good question. I don't know offhand. Let me take a look. Let's pop open.
Yeah, it's a good thing to check.
Ranger spells under the game rules, and we can see all of the ranger spells laid out for us. And really, I'm looking for something like the fear spell or something like that, and I don't see it offhand. This would be an interesting ability to use because offhand I don't see any other mind affecting spells like this. If you were to take magic initiative, pick up a spell like cause fear, which is a first level spell,
right,
then you could have a fear ability on your spell list that would potentially be quite useful in conjunction with this. Yeah,
I agree. Yeah, there might be a little bit more use there. Sorry, tend not to multi-class with ranger, but yeah.
On the other hand,
but with a feat, that makes a lot of sense.
If you've got an enchantment wizard in your team, you don't need to invest in fear effects or charm effects of your own. You can kind of just ride the coattails of your enchantment wizard and use this ability as a team player sort of feature.
That's very true.
As we know, the Tasha subclasses are all about helping you be a team player in your party to enhance the abilities of other charm and fear effects that are already in your party's wheelhouse.
Now, we do have a couple of feats. Let's see. I do want to take a look at one thing in particular, though. So we have Fey Touched. That gives you Misty Step if you use that feat. And then you can choose a spell. And one first level spell of your choice. The spell must be from divination or enchantment. So I wouldn't do Mage Initiate necessarily. Being a ranger, I'd probably go for the feat Fey Touched, which clearly you are.
That fits the theme.
You then get an additional Misty Step. Then you choose a first level spell of your choice. And you mentioned Cause Fear. That's probably the go-to on that one. And I think that makes the most sense. That also opens up exactly what spell you can grab from pretty much any class. So that's probably the way I would go, because you can always use more Misty Step, to be completely honest.
Certainly.
I'm never like, oh, too much Misty Step. So that brings us to our 11th level ability for this subclass. It's called Fey Reinforcements. The royal courts of the Feywild have blessed you with the assistance of Fey beings. You now know Summon Fey, a spell in Chapter 3. It doesn't count against the number of ranger spells you know, which is great, and you can cast it without material components. You can also cast it once without a spell slot, and regain the ability to do so when you finish a long rest. Whenever you start casting the spell, you can modify it so that it doesn't require concentration. Wow. If you do so, the spell's duration becomes 1 minute after casting.
This is a very interesting feature to me. I'm not sure if I've ever seen something like that in D&D that allows you to alter the duration or alter concentration at a cost.
Oh, yeah, you're altering the deal. Yeah, it's interesting.
I'm afraid I do not alter it further. Yes.
Yeah. The summon Fey is it's among those new summon abilities that actually scale with you. I find this interesting because then we may be seeing a little bit more of what we were hoping for from this class, and maybe what we initially got from Unearthed Arcana. But the Fey Spirit, it's very important we take a look at this now, has a number of abilities that do scale. So you're at 11th level. This Fey can magically teleport 30 feet. The Fey has advantage on the next attack roll before it makes before the end of its turn. It has Mirthful, where the Fey can force one creature it can see within 10 feet of it to make a wisdom saving throw against your spell save DC. Unless the save succeeds, the target is charmed by you and the Fey for 1 minute.
I do love these new summon spells in Tashas. We should really take some time to talk about them in the future. But this Fey one is not much of a fighter, but its abilities of charm and so forth are really, really quite powerful.
Absolutely. So, and having advantage on the attack roll. So I can now see you summon this at 11th level. You could constantly be having it force a creature to make a charm saving throw. It's not charm person, so you're not worried really about that situation. And if it's doing this every turn, it's trying to charm everyone around you. You could start just bouncing it back at other people if they fail. So now you have like a little bit of synergy with what is essentially a pet, right? So you might be able to diffuse the situation quite quickly in a very weird way.
Absolutely. I'm still thinking about this modified so it doesn't require concentration, because if you really just want this for a single fight, then you can do it and still keep spells like Hunter's Mark up. You don't have to worry about losing your concentration on this because you took damage because you're in the thick of the fight. This opens up possibilities that previously I had never considered when it comes to not just like gameplay, but mechanical design for D&D as well.
And real quick, let's see. I'm not seeing any particular synergy with the spell list, but it's. I mean, hey, no concentration. That's pretty great.
Hey, as long as it's got synergy with Hunter's Mark, that most infamous of concentration spells, you've got a winner.
If you're a ranger, you should be Hunter's Mark. If you're a paladin, you should be smiting. Yeah. It's just the rules.
Precisely.
Misty Wanderer.
Yes, our capstone 15th level subclass ability. You can slip in and out of the Feywild to move in the blink of an eye. You can cast Misty Step, one of your special Fey Wanderer spells for the record, without expending a spell slot. And you can do this a number of times equal to your wisdom modifier, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. In addition, whenever you cast Misty Step, you can bring along one willing creature you can see within 5 feet of you. That creature teleports to an unoccupied space of your choice within 5 feet of your destination space. That's cool. This makes your Misty Step a little bit more like Dimension Door, which, interestingly enough, you also get.
You also have. Yeah.
But the ability to just kind of pop around a battlefield, and moreover do it with a friend, is useful for an attacker who doesn't really want to be in the line of fire all that much, right? It lets you rush into a combat situation as a ranger, mess an enemy up, and then just pop out of there, possibly without them even knowing where you ended up if you go somewhere that they can't see. And moreover, if you've got a rogue in the middle of the situation who doesn't want to be there when the monster gets his next turn, they're out of there also. I think this is very cool, very Eladrin-like, who have their Fey Step ability to do something quite similar.
Very, very true. Yeah,
which makes sense. You're both of that same Feywild tradition.
Yeah, and you could do this with other people because you don't have to worry about your summoned Fey because they can do this on their own anyways. So yeah, there's a lot of teleporting around the battlefield and becomes kind of interesting. Like, can you charm everyone on the battlefield? Ultimately, so originally this 15th level ability was I become invisible forever to one particular. Not forever, but I think it was like for 24 hours. You pick a target, and if they fail, they can't see you. So this has been this entire subclass has had a lot of revisions. I think it's still very fun. It's extremely Feywild. It's a bit of a teleporter, obviously, and has some nice other effects in there. I think it's very flavorful for someone who wants someone who's maybe been in the Feywild a wee bit too long and have turned into something else. So.
Yes, indeed. I think the flavor applications of this subclass are interesting depending on where your campaign is set, right? Rangers are an odd duck insofar as when you've got things like favorite terrain and favorite enemies, you kind of are making an unstated deal with your DM. It's like, hey, DM, I would really enjoy to fight this type of enemy and to explore this kind of terrain. And if they don't, then there's kind of an unspoken agreement that's been broken. And this sort of ranger obviously loves, forests, classic places where Fey dwell. You think about Greek nymphs. There are naiads who live in rivers, dryads in the forests, and so forth. In fact, you can look in Mythic Odysseys of Theros and see the elemental spirits that dwell in places like that. But also, I would feel the slightest bit shortchanged if I played a high-level Fey Wanderer and we didn't dip into the Feywild for just a little bit at least.
Yeah, it feels like you should probably enter into your hometown at least once.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then the question is socially, like, how do you feel about that? Is this Fey Wanderer, is the Feywild a cursed place to you? Have you suffered some trauma there? Or is this a beautiful homecoming for you?
That's a very good point. I mean, this may be like maybe you left for reasons, maybe you were the victim of a changeling swap, in the very old Irish mythology kind of sense of like a baby being stolen and replaced with a Fey. I always do like that, where you may be like the like the creepiest guy, the most gothiest guy, and then you go to their hometown, they hate it. So, and then they now feel free. So going back to the Feywild, maybe there's some debts that need to be paid, right? Some agreements that were made, things to find out about that character. So that's all very fun. Now, I have been negligent in the fact that we are giving away a copy of Tasha's Cauldron of Everything at some point during the show. I should have said that at the very beginning, but I did not. But I'm saying it now. It's a fantastic book, so good luck to anyone who does acquire that. We do have a few questions. Question: does otherworldly stack with expertise? It should.
Otherworldly.
So the otherworldly is what gives you that bonus from your wisdom modifier to your social interactions.
Absolutely stacks with expertise.
I use expertise specifically with my character Avron on persuasion because I actually like persuasion more than deception. I find persuasion is more effective, especially if you are taunting someone. So you can persuade someone to do something for, in a nice way or by talking trash. So I like persuasion quite a bit. So you can do that. Yes. Dreadful strikes. If two Fey Wanderers... Sorry, I'm trying to read this. Dreadful strikes. If you have two Fey Wanderers, would that psychic damage only affect a creature once from each Wanderer? a turn or once for each other's turn? It would be each other's turn, I think.
Yeah. I think that if I had 2 Fey Wanderers in my party and they both had this ability and were using it against the same monster, each one would get their
I feel like that's a weird penalty to put on people.
You know, rules is written which can take this extra damage only once per turn. I think rules is written they would only take it from one ranger, but that strikes me as an odd quirk, and one that would add to the unhappiness of my table rather than the happiness.
Well, I think the origin sentence though does say, I mean, you. So this damage, you being yourself. Either way, I wouldn't do it. I would allow.
This is the sort of thing that I would feel weird litigating at my table.
It's not even remotely abusive. This is not a game-breaking thing. Also, if you decide to have 2 Fey Wanderer Rangers in your party, like, you know, this is a very specific.
Oh, the Fey have taken him. Mr. Kenreck has been taken into the Feywild. But yeah, far be it from any
specific case.
He's back.
Sorry, I was frozen.
That's okay.
We do have another question. What spells would you add from the player's handbook for Ranger subclasses, since all the most recent subclasses provided conclave spells?
I have a very good answer for that. And current D&D design team member Dan Dillon, this is probably 2 or 3 years ago now, before he was on the design team, released an unofficial sort of free spell buff to the 2 subclasses in the player's handbook. They're on his Twitter somewhere. Dan_Dillon_1 is where you can find that. Maybe I'll find it real quick and drop the link in chat.
Yeah, we'll drop that link in chat. Let's go ahead now. Those are all the questions. Oh wait, we got one more. Do you think the Fey Wanderer Ranger would multi-class well with a Valor Bard? Possibly, yeah. I would have to really take a look at that, because that could be quite fiddly ultimately. But I think it makes sense with any bard if you want to get that little charisma bump as well.
So I found those extra spells from Dan Dillon. I just retweeted them to my Twitter. If you go to @JamesJ Haeck at twitter.com, you will find them there. But I will also drop that link in the chat, in Twitch chat right now. So there you go. Those are extra spells for the Beastmaster and Hunter Rangers from Player's Handbook. Enjoy.
Tasha's Cauldron of Everything is available now on D&D Beyond. Purchase before January 5th to unlock the Cauldron dice set, as well as character sheet backdrops, themes and frames.